That criminal network that we busted in Rungwa, they were part of a network that was responsible for up to 18,000 unaccounted for elephants.
Fuck.
Yeah, you believe that shit? It's bad. There have been many assassinations of individuals and leaders within conservation. Those that make a difference, you've got a bounty on your head.
I really appreciate you guys being here today. Big part of the show is bringing on folks who really walk the walk, don't just talk about it. And you guys are both 100% those people. But I just want to express just real gratitude for you guys being here. And I'm not the best at introductions, so if you guys could. Could you just, tell me your names and sort of tell me a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your organization, VETPAW?
Sure. So my name is Ryan Tate. I'm the president and founder of VETPAW, which is Veterans Empowered to Protect African Wildlife. I started the organization after I served in the U.S. Marine Corps. I also served in the U.S. Department of State. And I just watched a documentary and it really hit me hard and decided I want to do something about it. And that was about 8 years ago.
What was the documentary that you saw?
It was a documentary on one of the major news channels. I was actually watching Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown, God rest him. And I wasn't tired, so I was like, well, I'll see what's on next. As far as my animal involvement at the time, I used to go to local animal shelters to volunteer. It helped with my, PTSD and therapy and things like that. And so I would take pictures of the animals. Photography is a big passion of mine, and it would help their adoption rate on the website. I already had 2 adopted cats and a 125-pound Rottweiler in my New York City apartment, so there were no more room for animals. But so I'm the type of person where if I know that animal abuse exists and cruelty, I don't want to see it because I know it's there. And if I can't do something about it, why put myself through that? I don't know, I guess my parents just raised me to be compassionate for the voiceless and the innocent, and animals are that. And so I watched this documentary after Parts Unknown was on, and I was not prepared to see what I saw.
What specifically, if you can't, what specifically was it in that documentary that really got you?
So there's 3 things. It was 3 gut punches in a row. One, there was a massive bull elephant missing its tusks, entire face, brain matter all over the tar road. The trunk is sitting separately from the body, like 10 feet away. I mean, it was gruesome. The next scene was park rangers laying dead. And the third scene was video footage of a female rhino that poachers had darted with a tranquilizer that they got off the black market, because tranquilizer guns don't go bang, so nobody can hear it. So they darted her. She went to sleep. They hacked her horn off through the flesh, 45 seconds, and then they were out. Then she wakes up from the tranquilizer, and her calf, newborn baby, is gone in the bush. And they're waiting on veterinarians to get there. I mean, you can't really save an animal after it's had its face cut off. I mean, I wouldn't want you to save me if it was me. Right. And so anyways, while they're waiting for the veterinarians, we just watched this rhino die. I mean, there were literally tears coming down its eyes. It was confused. And like all that PTSD and stuff you get as a result of war, I just kind of shoved it in a glass jar, super glued it shut. I'm like, I'm good. I'll just deal with it. And that rhino was the last straw, and it just shattered that jar. I was crying like a baby, snot coming down my face, and pissed off. I felt everything that animal felt, and I had to do something about it. And knowing that park rangers are dying at the same time, I just can't. I can't deal with that.
And where do you go from there? I mean, knowing that you have to do something about it, and you found this kinship to these park rangers, can you explain that and then explain what your next steps were?
Yeah, so I was still at the U.S. Department of State. I was not a foreign affairs advisor. The State Department can be territorial, rightfully so. I mean, you're dealing with relationships with other countries. So I pissed off a ton of people doing research on this.
Tell them who you were protecting, too. Tell them who you were protecting, because it was high level.
No, I worked with senior State Department leadership. But
And you were working for him as security, or you were?
yeah, I was on the security details. I had an assistant secretary of state come up to me and say, and this is on a Friday, she said, with her whole entourage, I was at President Obama's Advisory Council for Wildlife Trafficking, an open forum where they were talking about what the U.S. is going to do to help stop poaching and wildlife trafficking, which is a top 5 international crime. And so I took leave off of work, went to D.C., and I was there as a private citizen. She knew who I was. And on a Friday, she said, if you don't stop what you're doing right now, you will not have a job on Monday. And so I stormed out of there pissed off as all hell. Like, who does this chick think she is? And I turned in my resignation papers on Monday.
And look, man, I got so many fucking questions. But why? 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 What's her?
So
why did she say that?
Their response was, we don't understand what skills U.S. veterans have that translate to counter poaching. And that's disgusting to me. I mean, that just shows that, okay, you're tasked with focusing on this challenge, and you don't know how bad it is over there? You don't know that criminal networks, militarized terrorist groups are doing the poaching? I mean, it's nuts.
I really want to go into the connection between both organized crime, terrorism, Al-Shabaab, like especially at first in Tanzania. You hand in your resignation letter, and then what's next? What happens next?
Then it's, oh shit, what do I do now?
Right.
No, I just started going to Africa. A lot of it on my own dime. You know, we weren't even I don't think we got our 501c3 until, 8 months later. So yeah, I just started going over and observing. I'm not going to go in with American flag. I mean, dude, I've got an American flag tattooed on my chest, but I'm not going to be leading the way, freedom fighters and my way or the highway, because a lot of Americans go to Africa and, a lot of organizations, and that style doesn't work. And when they leave, it damages those of us that are there.
And is that knowledge or that insight, is that something that you garnish? Is that something that you learned in overseas in the Middle East?
100%.
And can you explain that parallel?
I mean, at the end of the day, listen, poachers are criminals. Just because they're poaching animals doesn't mean that's all that they do to make money. They traffic humans, drugs, they commit terrorist activities, arms dealing, you name it. I mean, they are bad people, these networks at least, and they're taking advantage of locals. And it's very similar to what we did and experienced in the Middle East. It's these large, powerful bullies of criminal networks, terrorist networks that come in and they exploit the community. What the U.S. military is really good at is taking a large area of operation, massive area of operation, and successfully managing operations within it with small teams, small unit tactics. We were teaching these guys how to utilize cover and concealment, intelligence gathering and exploitation, field trauma medicine, you name it, leadership, and what's crazy is that these park rangers were so stoked that a U.S. Marine is here. They are so well versed in the wars in the Middle East, and the fact that we're here with our skills to help you with your job, they were like, we're important. Wow, what we are doing is actually very honorable to have guys like this coming here.
Absolutely. Originally, you're going over there to basically train and then help facilitate the work of the Rangers. It's a group of U.S. veterans who served in the Middle East. And, in that group, you've got Purple Heart recipients, Bronze Star recipients. I mean, can you talk about initially the group of people that you went over with, how that group was formed? What I know is from the TV show on Discovery, but was that the first group that went out?
That was the first full team group. Before that, Oz, who's on the show, Green Beret, 18 Delta, one of my best friends, he's an amazing guy. It was me and him. We were doing a ton of undercover ivory buys and things like that.
And how did you two connect? And how did you find this sort of?
Honestly, he just reached out to me one day and was like, hey, I've been to Africa and I've done some counter poaching, found your group. I'd just love to support you.
Fuck yeah.
And so we started a relationship, and the rest was kind of history. We were Mark, myself, and Oz were all on the same level of thinking about how we're going to do things. It's not a one size fit all. And we're doing this not to make money. We're not doing this for egos. We're doing this because we actually want to make a difference.
Absolutely.
VETPAW didn't want to go in there like, well, we're here to make a difference, right? It was, we're here to support the Tanzanian Anti-Wildlife Crimes Task Force at the time.
Which is that the Rangers?
So we actually helped form the task force. It was
Got
the
it.
first ever wildlife crimes task force. So it was intelligence based. So we actually handpicked. We did a whole interview process with them. We handpicked each member of that 15-person team. So their job was to go and do undercover buys and collect information and then exploit that so we can go and take these guys down.
I mean, again, man, I have so many fucking questions, but because so much of it kind of depends on this sort of like undercover work. You don't have the infrastructure where you're tapping people's phones or the stuff is done, again, boots on the ground, undercover work. Obviously going in with cameras makes your job harder, makes your job more dangerous. And I mean, Rangers die. Rangers get killed in this. Can you just sort of explain sort of the risks, the risks that are just part of this deal?
I mean, it's a very complex industry, especially when you look at some of these, these corrupted governments. And that's not me pointing fingers at any specific government or agency within. But you do have bad players in some of these governments. So it makes it hard. You don't know who to trust. I think the easiest way to put it, to just lay it out there, when I left Tanzania in the Wildlife Crimes Task Force, I had a brown recluse bite on my foot, and the local hospital was like, we can't help you, dude. You need to go back to the States. So I went back to the States. The guy that took over that task force was assassinated a few months later in Dar es Salaam. Two dudes pulled up on a motorcycle while he was in the back of a cab, blasted him, and took off. It's bad. There have been many assassinations of individuals and leaders within conservation. Those that make a difference, you've got a bounty on your head.
Because it's such dangerous work, you're also operating. I mean, granted, you have experience operating overseas, out of the jurisdiction of obviously of the states. But I've just heard, within this movement, I have some sort of family ties to conservationism, especially with animals, and I've heard that there has been so many sort of examples of these government leaders in these governments over there that are sort of like, okay, yeah, let's bring these people in, let's get the help, and then you realize they're on the take.
Oh, dude, oh my God.
I mean, how do you establish a sense of trust? and I guess because what I found really moving and kind of beautiful about something you said on the show is that once you were out in the field with these other Rangers, once you show, hey, dude, I'm about walking this walk, not about talking about it, then all of a sudden the bond between you guys is as solid as fuck, right?
They get motivated.
Fucking A. They're like, these guys are here. These guys are down for this. They're not bullshitters.
Well, they're also wondering, where's the world? Where's the world's response to this crisis?
And it's a question about, I mean, there was a moment, I believe, where you were sort of interrogating a poacher. And I want to talk about like sort of the level 1 through 5 and like how you sort of go about that. Because a big thing that we explore in this show is sort of policing in this country and the sort of state of policing. And, you guys are left to deal, when you talk about drug cops in this country, there's either guys who are street level guys, or there are guys who are sort of city level guys, or there are guys who are sort of like going after the big dogs and they have the infrastructure of the federal government to go about those things. You guys are doing the full fucking gamut on your own. Like, you're going after the big dogs, you're trying to turn people against each other. One of the things when you were sort of like talking to these guys is you were sort of telling them, what this is doing to their children, to their country. Can you just talk about, either of you guys talk about the effects that poaching has on these countries, on the environment as a whole, on the state of sort of like those societies and how crippling it is for those places?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I never want to pretend like I've walked a day in someone else's shoes. So I try to take an empathetic, compassionate approach to everything, even if it is a shitbag. You know what I mean? I don't know what his story is. Maybe we can inspire this guy to turn it around. But I'm not God, and it's not my job to judge you. Mm-hmm. And so I just think when you bring that to the table, like man to man, do you want me talking like that to you?
Right.
Like talking down on you?
Right.
and drilling, especially if I'm an American in your country in Africa?
yeah.
Hell no. That's not going to work. Give the guy a cigarette and hang out, talk man to man, educate him a little bit, and work with him. And I believe in that. It's just not my place. I don't like this. I don't know, villainizing of everybody until I know their situation. You know, I mean, there's so much potential in Africa. When you think of Africa, what do you think? Like first thing that comes to mind? Animals. Lion King, safaris. That's still an untapped industry over there. So if we let it get poached out, I mean, the potential's gone. The jobs that are there now are gone, and now you have a corrupted society, a desperate society, and where do criminals thrive?
Right.
You know, with desperate people, desperate situations.
Right.
And so then what's next? The animals go, the natural resources are already dwindling. They've been saying Africa's the next battleground for how long now? Since the 80s, I think, or 70s. And you're going to see it if we lose animals.
And Mark, where did you have you been involved in this since the beginning? Like where did you come into this?
I was putting people undercover in circuses and
Wow.
and where animals are being abused for the entertainment
dangerous,
industry.
too.
Yeah. It just all clicked into, hey, I got a couple friends who work in TV. Let's see if we can, help this cause. And so I just came into it from there. I just believe, I spent so much time with elephants, observing them in captivity, being exploited in circuses, etc. I mean, I've seen them shocked. I've seen them beaten. I've seen them exploited by, people who provide elephants for like movies like, I don't know, what was that one with Robert Pattinson? The circus one with the elephant. I can't remember the name of the movie, but that elephant was highly abused, Thai.
Okay.
And that's an Asian elephant. But when I think about elephants, I just love them.
That criminal network that we busted in Rungwa, they were part of a network that was responsible for up to 18,000 unaccounted for elephants.
Fuck.
Yeah, you believe that shit?
Fuck. And right now, your relationship with the Tanzanian government is what?
I mean, it's there. It's a working relationship. We share information. They really want us to come back and teach it at their ministries college. So we teach, have you ever heard of human terrain mapping or behavior pattern recognition? So
No, please
we're
tell us.
we are the only people teaching that in Africa. It's basically how to teach law enforcement and park rangers how to think like a criminal, how to develop a baseline of someone quickly. Just because someone's acting nervous and fidgety, that doesn't mean that they're hiding something. They're probably just scared because, or nervous because an authoritative figure is coming. It doesn't mean you shoot them or,
Right.
That you abuse them or, any of that stuff. And it's something that really needs to be taught all over the world in law
100%.
enforcement because it's risk mitigation. It's de-escalation of force, not letting it get ramped up. And actually, the first time we taught that course in Africa, Lynn did, on their lunch break, they were going up to the local lodge and they saw 8 guys on the side of the road cutting grass. Sometimes that's normal. But what they learned in just the very first portion of the course, they saw some cues there. And sure enough, the guys had just thrown their guns and their chainsaws and axes over the fence and they were getting ready to go poach rhinos.
Wow.
And they busted them right there.
Wow.
Without a shot fired, nobody running, no abuse, nothing.
Wow.
It works.
Wow. So much of policing in general is about your relationship with the community. It's about hearts and minds, right? It's getting people to say, hey, you're better off talking to me. And I imagine that over there, that comes at extreme risk.
Yeah.
So how do you mitigate that? And so just first, tell about the different levels and how do you sort of attack?
Sure. So you have your level 1, which is your shooter. That's normally just a local that has been tracking the animals, and there's no way they can really get out of it. So poachers aren't just poor people in villages. The whole team is typically a major criminal network, and they send their protective team in to come in and guard the shooter while he tracks the elephant. Your next level is going to be the guy that the middleman. He's going to be the guy that coordinates with the supply and demand dealer in the big city in Africa, and he goes and finds those locals that are willing to do it before the network sends in their shooters to protect him. After that, it's going to be the person that coordinates from Asia to Africa. I say Asia, but the U.S. is number 2 in ivory sales. So that's no way. I mean, we got our issues too. And then the top guy is the guy that's making all the money, and he's the kingpin in Asia or the U.S. or whatever country it may be, that's finding the customers for it, getting them exactly what they want, and making sure that everything goes smoothly.
And I imagine that guy is normally out of country, correct?
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, how do you guys, I mean, is there any sort of international effort in trying, do you feel like you have international support for sort of federal governments or federal agencies who have that sort of infrastructure and targeting those big guys, those big wigs?
It's a good question. I don't think they've connected the dots enough, at least, the bureaucratic leadership within some of these government agencies. I know the guys that focus from a ground level get it. I mean, Interpol's focusing on it. I know that. The U.S. Department of State does help us with some information just to keep us safe. But it would be nice for the U.S. to step up on this, because the amount of aid that we're giving some of these countries now, it's going to be a lot more when we lose the wildlife.
And laws are changing in other countries as well.
How so?
They're cracking down. They're realizing that it's not a good look. It's detrimental to what they want to do, whatever their agendas is. You have to also remember too that China makes huge investments into Tanzania, South Africa, all over the place. There's been Chinese government officials arrested for, correct me if I'm wrong, but transporting ivory, et cetera, in diplomatic pouches.
Wow.
So, which are never looked at, right? Unless they're irradiated.
Unless they're pinged for radiation, which is
a new technique in terms of detecting radiated horns or whatever the case may be.
But worshiping these majestic animals over there and loving these and having a profound sort of respect and reverence for them, how prevalent is that over there?
I think with park rangers, in most cases, and I'm talking most, like 99% of the time, I believe them to be doing the job for passion for wildlife, protecting their heritage. I mean, if you look at the money in most countries in East Africa, in the southern hemisphere of Africa, they have animals on their currency. And like, you show that to somebody and you're like, hey, this is your heritage. Like, how embarrassing is that going to be for your generation when, your kids, the animals are gone for them.
Right.
We read this book, one of our board members wrote, Lulu is a Rhino, and it was inspired by his first trip to Africa with us. Jason Flom wrote it. And so we try to go into the schools and teach the kids, it's a good way to just connect with them. But if you teach a kid at a young age, like, hey, no, that animal, like, that's an icon.
Right.
That's where it starts, educating the youth. The youth is empowering economies and educating people.
What's the money ratio? Like, how much, if you compared the money that's made by animal tourism versus poaching, what's that? Do you have any idea what that is?
I don't know.
It's so disproportionate because it's only a handful of people making money off of poaching, whereas a whole lodge, eco-friendly lodge, supplies 50 to 100.
There's way more money,
jobs.
and one is sustainable, one isn't.
Exactly.
So, and that's part of the argument also to winning the hearts and minds. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you're literally, you're killing off the resource.
Yep.
Economic. It's not even close.
And what's crazy is every time a rhino's poached, the value of that horn is going to go up on the black market because there's less of them. It's more rare.
Right.
So it's they're literally poaching these animals to extinction.
Let's just talk about a little bit, if you guys don't mind, just sort of in the field, the level of danger for you guys in the field. I've been to Africa. I was there, with my family. We went on safari, and also, I mean, it was most profound experience of my life by far was just being able to be out there among those animals. While we were there, we had an accident, and there's no way you can describe to people who haven't been there how profoundly alone and how, like, you are fucking fucked. If anything bad happens,
Yeah.
you are fucked. It's not like, hey, we're like 30 minutes or an hour or a couple hours from the hospital. It's like, it's not gonna happen, man. There's no way to get there in time. And you know, we really experienced that. And you know, you're going out there with people shooting at you.
Well, that's why that was so ironic about the first mission was, you know, you guys are out there doing the work. You could get shot at, you could get hit with a fucking bow and arrow, whatever the case may be, but it was a spider that kind of brought you down. You know what I mean? So the danger's minuscule, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean,
it can be.
You also have.
I mean, minuscule in terms of like it comes in a small body. You know,
it's a dangerous. I mean, it's a dangerous place for people to be. Period.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt Kunkel got attacked by a Cape buffalo and lived to tell about it. Nobody does that. He's a strongman guy, right? Have you ever seen Dodgeball with where he's got the painting of him fighting the bull?
Yeah.
This is literally what he did for almost an hour.
So is that a lone?
Was he a Marine? Was he a Marine or a?
He's actually in U.S. Army SF. Okay. Yeah.
And so what happened? Was it a lone? I heard that like the lone male Cape buffalo, because like in a herd, right? They're not that dangerous, but if you get one by himself, it's like very dangerous. Isn't that right?
Yeah, one or two. Matt was checking a fence line, the voltage on a fence, and there was a guy from another organization that was supposed to be catching his back. And Matt had my beautiful, awesome 308 rifle with a really nice piece of glass on it. And the buffalo launched that over the fence like 40 feet in the air. And no, he had puncture wounds, right?
So did he just sneak up on him? Or he didn't see
No. It was driving him into the ground. He was wrestling this thing for almost an hour. But he's a strongman competitor.
Wow.
If it was me, I'd be dead. If it was any one of us here, we'd be dead.
Wow. And so how does that end?
So I wasn't there for it. I actually woke up in the middle of the night. I was in the U.S. fundraising, and I get a WhatsApp message, and all it said was, "Hey, Matt got attacked by a buffalo. We're on the way to the hospital." Yeah. And I woke up to this. What in the hell? Yeah. It's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Ryan gets a lot of these texts.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. I've talked to people, as you guys know. Like I talked to my dad. My dad used to be the chairman of the board of the Humane Society of the United States, and he would tell me that there were groups that were kind of similar to you guys that were sort of not welcomed because it was looked at as these are Americans, especially white Americans, coming into these places.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you navigate that? What are your thoughts on that? It seems to me that clearly your guys' hearts are with not just with these animals, but are with the communities. Have you guys come in contact with that? And to what degree has that been racial?
Believe it or not, and I'll plant this seed and I'll leave it there for another time. But it was there was a very famous American celebrity whose brother had a corrupt program going on, and he decided that he wanted to get a TV production. Nobody would give him a TV production because we were already in the market, and we're a real organization, not a TV production.
Right.
And so he decided to go and stick his fingers in places and manipulate things behind our back, which I haven't forgotten about. So love to run into him one day. But
there was a lot of politics that happened there in terms of that mission.
I mean, don't say anything you guys don't want to say, but like, what? Like,
I just don't want to get sued.
Because what I saw again, and I mean, it's sort of a continual theme that we hit on this show. The guys on the ground who are actually doing the work fucking love you guys. You guys are like brothers in arms. You guys are like totally synced in mission. But then you've got these folks who aren't on the ground, who aren't in the field, that are having problems with it. Those people are easily manipulated. If you've actually been in the down the road with somebody and you're actually in the field with somebody, it's a lot harder to manipulate them. You know, there's a camaraderie and a brotherhood there.
Well, let me just say this from my observation. Nobody did this really before VETPAW. Utilizing the skills of post 9/11 veterans, right? Which are taxpayer-funded skills that go to waste. So part of Ryan's vision was, how can we utilize those skills that American taxpayers are paying for and have an impact on protecting endangered species?
We had an amputee come out.
Wow.
He lost his leg in Afghanistan. Came out, the guy's scaling walls, literally like walls,
on a blade,
with his prosthetic on, riding dirt bikes. This guy left a combat zone on a stretcher and a helicopter, not on his own terms. Now we gave him an opportunity He earned his opportunity to come out to Africa and leave a new area of operation on his own terms. That's healing, I think.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and then he went on to get his master's, and
Yeah.
so there's something about this organization that, even when it's ups and downs, changes the lives, hopefully for the better, of the people who work for it. Yeah.
What is the vetting process? What is the selection process, obviously, and then what's the training?
Sure. So it all is based on, the mission's needs at the time, in terms of how many guys that we invite, men and women. We've had women go through it as well. But it's tough. I mean, we're not here to, put you through boot camp again. We've all done that. I don't have time for that. I don't want to do that crap. So we wear you out mentally and physically. You've got to go through a physical fitness test. You got to go through land nav, night nav. You got to go through rifle shooting, pistol shooting. Did I say medical yet?
No.
Field medicine, and then human terrain mapping and behavior pattern recognition. You get an introduction to that. You have to, whoever finishes top, you get priority when deployments open up. We're not a, guns for hire. We're not coming out to film a TV production. Otherwise, we wouldn't still be there. You see a lot of those NGOs. You see some veterans that go out there, they do some filming. They break a lot of laws on camera too, and then they can never come back. We're still there. And people need to see that we're not cops in the bush. People need to come out and see what we're doing. You can come out and visit our host reserve, where our headquarters is. You're incredibly safe. You have U.S. veterans always around. You get a hands-on experience like no other. You're not bumping into tourists everywhere. If there's elephants, there's not a traffic jam of safari vehicles.
Right.
You're spending time with the veterans around the fire at night, hearing their story, and then you become part of our family.
Can you talk about the relocation project, though, and
so,
how many baby rhinos have come out of that? And I mean, not specific numbers, but
so we have had, I want to say, a 30% increase in black rhinos since we relocated them there, naturally through breeding. Elephants, our populations are exploding, but with the black rhinos, we're set to move 100 black rhinos into our reserve from high-risk areas. We moved the first 18, then COVID hit. So now we're looking to do that again. We moved them upside down underneath the Huey and into the reserve. They're asleep. It's the safest way. Actually, I think it was at Stanford. One of the big schools deemed it's the safest way to move them is upside down.
Wow.
So it's trippy seeing, it's basically like a Chevy Suburban upside down underneath a Huey.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I'll have to show you the pictures.
Wow.
So there's that. I mean, we're a nonprofit, so awareness is so important. That's why we appreciate the opportunity being on your show. I mean, it's a big deal for us. Donations are great. We're not. A lot of people see our social media and they think we've, got all this big funding. We're not even $1 million organization. To do what we do with $1 million a year is insane. Nobody else can do it. Go and find them. I dare you. You won't. We don't have an endowment. We're hand to mouth. We want to work on an endowment. But so every donation goes to supporting those guys on the ground, every penny.
And when you said you could come out and visit the reserve, so like, you're a travel agent right now, man. Tell me, what's that like?
We can do OPs, observation points up in the mountains. If we're doing an operation, a medical operation procedure on an animal, you get to participate in that.
Wow.
So if we dart a rhino because we have to recollar it for tracking purposes or check the health after it's been relocated to the reserve, you got to check those hormone levels and things like that.
Or dehorn or...
we don't do dehorning on our reserve.
Great.
We're not against it. We believe it's starting to change the genetics. You can actually cut the horn of a rhino off without going through the flesh, but it takes a team of people. It takes
and why
a
do you
while
do
to
that?
To make them less appealing to poachers. But if a poacher tracks a dehorned rhino and finds that it doesn't have a horn, they'll shoot it anyways, so they don't continue tracking it. So it's
fucking motherfuckers, dude.
Yeah, it's scum.
And the horn grows back. It's like a finger.
Yeah, it grows back. But it's starting to affect the gene pool or the behavior patterns because the males can't bully the females anymore. So they're not breeding as much. So now what do we do?
Got it.
So it's but
I need to
our
grow
rhinos
my
have,
fucking horn, man.
Yeah.
And
the experience is for the average person who's passionate about conservation, passionate about the kind of animals that you've seen, and it's called the VETPAW experience, right?
Yep.
Basically, and so you get a 2-week opportunity to really be hands-on in what it takes to keep these animals protected, thriving, and diverse.
And how do you go about finding
So
that?
you go on vetpaw.org, and we have an experience tab on there, and you just fill out the form on there. We do check some social media. You know, we want to make sure you're not, you know, I'm not your therapist, so if you're coming to Africa with us, yeah, I don't want to sit around a fire and, you know, listen to your problems all night. No offense, but yeah, we make sure it's the right people.
Sure.
You know, when you're coming out there, yeah, all the money that you paid goes back into the mission, but we need you returning back to the States and being an ambassador for us
Absolutely.
and spreading awareness for what we do. And yeah, it's just got to be the right people.
Right on. Guys, I really, really appreciate you guys being here. I have so much respect for what y'all did, and I just want to let you know, you got a friend in me, and anything that I can do, anything that we can be helpful with, or as much as I could be a part of things, please never ever hesitate.
Hell yeah, man.
You're like exactly the kind of guys that we want to celebrate, and just thank you for what you do, thank you for who you are. I really appreciate you guys doing this.
Appreciate it.
Right
Yeah,
on.
we need more guys like you, man. It's awesome that you use your platform for this. We appreciate it. And dude, you got to come to Africa with us.
It's a done deal.
You tell me when,
Done
and we're
deal.
going to make it happen. It'll change your
Fucking-
life with us.
I'm 100% coming.
We gotta bring
I
Josh.
seen that on fucking
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah, Josh is coming.
I'm 100% fucking coming. Thank you, fellas. I
Yeah.
really appreciate this. This was
Our
awesome.
pleasure.
It was a real honor, guys.
Thanks.
Likewise. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here, everybody. I really appreciate it. If you dug what you saw and you want to hear more, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. It'd mean a lot to us. I hope you dig these episodes as much as we dig doing them. You guys take care of yourself.